El Heharim Me'ayin Yavo Ezri Me'im Adonai Ose Shamayim Va'aretz Ezri Me'im Adonai Ose Shamayim Va'aretz Ayitin lamod raglecha Hayanum shomrecha Hine lo yanum velo yishan Shomer Yisrael Adonai Shomrecha Adonai Tzilcha Ayad Yeminecha Adonai Shomrecha Adonai Tzilcha Ayad Yeminecha Yomam HaShemesh lo yakeka Ve'yareach balayla Adonai yishmorcha mikora Yishmor et nafshecha Adonai yishmor tzedcha uvoecha me'ata ve'ad olam Adonai yishmor tzedcha uvoecha me'ata ve'ad olam Al mekomo yavo v'shalom. It is our tradition to begin with the chanting of a psalm, which I'll now translate. Psalm 121, Shir LaMa'alot, a song for those who ascend. Esa inai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. I turn my eyes to the mountains, from where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, from God, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way, your guardian will not slumber. You see, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian, your protection at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. God will guard your going and coming, now and forever. May Larry Loch go unto God in peace. Hatzur tamim paulo ki chol rachav mishpat el emunah ve'inav el tzadik v'yashar hu tzadik atah Adonai lamidu lahachayot asher biyadcha pikadar u'ruchot chalil lacha zichronenu limchot v'yihu na'enecha barachamim aleinu v'kuchot ki lecha Adon harachamim ve'haslichot. Adonai Natan v'Adonai Lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai Mevorach. V'hu rachum yechaper avon v'lo yashchid, v'hirba lashiv apo v'lo ya'ir kol chamato, v'yashov he'afar al ha'aretz shehaya, v'haruach tashuv el ha'elohim asher netana. The dust returns to the earth as it was, but the spirit returns to God who gave it. May our beloved soul be bound up in the bond of life eternal, and may God send comfort to those who mourn and grant strength to those whose burden is sorrow. I found a reading that I'd like to share to begin our service today. At times like this, we may look through books for the perfect words, to give form to our feelings, make the thing complete, set the matter at rest. Yet in hours of searching, each piece lies rejected, too precise, too difficult, too sweet, too harsh, implying what we do not wish to say. But look into the gray, wide sky, and the thoughts will come like this. Remember me when I loved you most, and you loved me most. Remember me when I was my bravest, and I did you right. Then let that be our secret bond, and let us rise in the morning and enjoy the light, and know that the bird in the mist is returning to the sun. We have come here today to honor Larry Loch, Leib Nachman ben Mendel Vidova, the son of Max and Dorothy, Zichronam Livracha, of blessed memory. Thank you everyone for being here. To those of you who are with us here at the cemetery, and to all of you who are watching the online broadcast of this service. Thank you, everyone, for paying tribute to Larry, showing him the highest form of respect we have in Jewish tradition, which is to accompany him here to his final resting place. And also, by joining your hearts together to give courage and strength to his family as they face this difficult time in their lives. Larry passed away Friday, the 6th day in the Hebrew month of Shvat. He was 68. He will be lovingly remembered and missed by his family. His sister Norma and brother-in-law Larry, his sister Rhoda, his nieces and nephews and their families, Adam, Leo, Kaylee, and Paige, Leslie and Brian, May and Hank, Alex and Michael and Gary, Lauren and Catherine and Lev, as well by many dear, close friends. It's often difficult to describe the depth of the pain when we have to watch someone we love get sick, whether it's a physical sickness or, in Larry's case, a mental illness. Either way, it robs them of their ability to live in love the way they should have been able, the way they often showed in Larry's case when he was young, polite, popular, loved by so many people. When I had a chance to sit with Larry's family, they recounted stories of his friends in his youth, his adolescence, high school years, before he got sick. They told the story of when Larry went to Israel and returned home, and people just kept showing up, one after the other, non-stop. They all knew he was back, and they all wanted to see him. And there were stories where, though he was not in contact with his family much or seen much by them for close to 40 years, when there were moments where they would interact, they saw the people in his life loved him and cared for him. Whether it was a landlord or someone making coffee and treats at the Salvation Army. His family stressed to me the deep, wonderful nature of all of his friendships and recalled fondly how loved he was by people who were fortunate to know him as a friend. They also shared how deep his love was for his family, as you'll hear in a moment when Adam, his nephew, will deliver the eulogy, the hesped, in his honor. One story in particular that I don't think Adam is going to mention, I wanted to share. Many years ago, when Larry saved his infant niece Lauren's life from a falling lamp, knocked over accidentally by some older kids playing at their Baba's house. Larry was on the floor, having politely asked to be excused from the table, and he jumped to rescue her, in the process breaking his leg in multiple places and sending himself into months at the hospital in recovery. But this story, while it may be fleeting and just a glimpse, shows a true glimpse into his true character. I was also taken personally when they shared the story that more recently, when Alex, his niece, saw him at the Salvation Army, and he looked at her and recalled, "You look like my niece, but you can't be. She's just a little girl." It's a tragic story, like so much of his life, and it reignites the pain and depression of someone who was stuck in the past, who can never break through. But it also reveals the impression his family made on him, something that was in him, deep within him, maybe even beyond his comprehension, but still there until the very end. Just like the love his family had for him. Larry may very well not have been aware of it or understood it or accepted it, but it was still there, and it is truly evident today by all of us who are here and tuning in. It's so easy today to dwell on what could have been, on the tragedy of what was lost, of someone who was at times so close physically yet could not be farther away. The Larry of the last 45 years. It might be better for us to remember the good we can, the early stories, the good that was in him, especially when Larry was young. Both sets of memories paint a full picture, which helps us honor him as he deserves, but also allows us to appreciate our own lives and to inspire us to be better. Mourning is the price we pay for having the courage to love others. The gifts of spirit our loved ones give us can never be measured or weighed, nor can they be lost or even tarnished by time. Even in our darkest hours, we know some of their light and their warmth will always be with us, bringing comfort and courage, and in the fullness of time, healing and peace. Jewish tradition teaches, death is better than a life of pain, and eternal rest is better than a constant sickness. Our hope, our prayers, are that Larry's suffering has come to an end, and that he is finally at peace. I'd like to call Adam forward to deliver the eulogy.
Sorry, so many layers. I just want to start, Matthew was talking about how my uncle had so many friends. So we pull up to the Chesed Shalemis today. First time in my life I'm early for anything. And we pull up and there's this man there. And he's looking through the window at us. And he keeps looking, and Leo and I are sitting in the car, and he keeps looking. And finally he comes out and he says, you can come in. Because we were still waiting for everybody. And he said, my name's Sheldon. I was a friend of your uncle's. And I've been sitting with him here for the last 3 nights. And it's just, he had friends everywhere, right? And what an incredible thing to sit with him for 3 nights. So I have my my notes here. So it's an honor to do a eulogy for anyone, but this is a particular honor. And I'll be honest, this is probably the hardest thing I've ever done. This isn't going to be the typical eulogy we become used to. It's going to be raw and at times and honest. And I just want to thank my family for trusting me with this eulogy. It's an honor. A eulogy is subjective by nature because it's one person telling the story, right? So I'm not going to be able to give you an objective picture or a blow-by-blow of my uncle's life. But I think a lot of us know the story, but I think it's worth telling. My Uncle Larry was diagnosed with schizophrenia when he was very young, early 20s. And it led to a lot of trials and tribulations and trauma throughout his life and throughout all of our lives. And then there was nothing. He was gone for so long. We found out later that he was living in various places. He spent time homeless. And, we found him, and he wrote found him when my grandmother was dying because she wanted to know where he was. And we all got to see him, at various times. At that point, he was living at the Salvation Army off of Main Street. And for the last year and a bit, we've been sort of following him from afar through his mental health worker, Jonathan. So, I have a series of memories about my uncle. My uncle basically disappeared from my life probably when I was, closer to my bar mitzvah or a little before. And I have memories, fleeting memories of him. Going to movies with him all the time. I was the oldest grandchild, and I was lucky enough to spend that time with him. We went to all those old theaters like the Odeon and the Garrick and the Capitol. He was very generous with me always. Drove this little gray car, Chevette, I think. Was constantly smoking. So much that like the above the ashtray in his car was like all yellow. And he had this like crazy thick black hair, this beautiful black mustache, this great laugh. The thing about my uncle that sort of permeates to this day and sort of has passed on is my uncle loved music and would share that with me in the sense that he gave me a bunch of his cassettes and his Walkman, which no one had at the time. I was telling the story yesterday. And, he had all these, my parents had records, right? But, like, I never wanted to listen to my parents' records. He had all these tapes and everything else, and everything was, like, interesting and cool and sort of different. And as I got older, once he was gone, I was thinking about this today, I started to realize, like, wow, he had such good taste, and I was just, going into all these things. And I actually asked my parents yesterday for, see if they had any of the cassettes left that I had, like, kept at their house. And so I picked up a box last night, and I was going through them, and the first tape that I saw was of Eric Burden and the Animals, and my son right now is learning how to play House of the Rising Sun. And so I just thought it was just everything kind of coming together at the same time, and I believe in things like that, and just believe he's here. You know, nobody really talks about schizophrenia or mental illness until you bring it up. And I'm very close with a group of my friends and the people that I work with, some of my clients, and I shared with some of them what's been going on, and you know, two of them basically said to me, like one of them said to me, my uncle lives in Manitoba housing and he's schizophrenic and I've never met him in my life. The other one said to me, you know, my brother's schizophrenic and he controls it with medication, but my aunt can't. You know, and everybody has all kinds of stories, but nobody talks about it. And all I would say is, you know, we need to talk about this more. You need to help people. You need to always try to help people. You know, we pass homeless people all the time. Like Larry was homeless. You need to treat everyone with dignity and grace. There's someone else's dad, or mom, brother, uncle. I can't help but think that the wedge is so thin here between Larry and any one of us. He was just unlucky, and it could happen to anybody at any time. You know, I'm still really trying to make sense of a lot of this. A friend of mine called me on Thursday out of the blue, and we were talking about all this, and she said, you know, you haven't changed a bit, you're still trying to make sense out of everything. And I said, like, I'm mad, I'm sad, I'm trying to make sense of something that makes no sense. And my comments, these aren't an indictment on anyone's actions or inactions. It's an indictment of the whole sad and ugly situation. It's an indictment of his illness. Schizophrenia stole Larry from us, all of us, including those of us who never had the distinct privilege of knowing him, like my kids, like all of our kids. And he missed so much. He missed weddings and bar mitzvah, he missed graduations, he missed deaths, he missed everything. It ravaged his mind and eventually his body. And every lousy thing that happened to him was because of his illness. It led to him being estranged from us, to him bouncing around, to him being homeless, to him living in the Salvation Army, to not being vaccinated, and to dying alone in a hospital from COVID. It's a lesson. It's just, you need to love the people around you as much as you can. Hold them. And I just want to thank Jonathan Clausen, who, you know, looked after my uncle for years, Lindsay Lavallo from the Public Trustee's Office, all the people at the Salvation Army, Sheldon, who sat with him for the last 3 nights. I believe Uncle Larry is at peace now. I have a friend who always says only good things. Uncle Larry, if you're still out there somewhere, and I know you are, we always loved you, we'll always love you, and we all wish you only good things. Thanks.
Thank you, Adam. That was courageous, powerful, and beautiful. A very fitting and special eulogy for your uncle and for everyone. In a moment, I will chant the El Malei Rachamim prayer, the traditional Jewish memorial prayer, and then we will join together in the words of the mourner's Kaddish before we take turns as a family and community to shovel earth into the grave. But I wanted to offer one more prayer for the family. God, you who heal the brokenhearted and bind up their wounds, grant comfort and consolation to these mourners as they face their grief. Fill their lives with acts of loving kindness and acts of truth, which will serve as the genuine memorial to their dear brother, uncle, and friend, Larry. The deep bond of love will remain unbroken. Rachamim shochein b'meromi Hamsei menucha nechona tachat kanfei Hashchina B'maloi kedoshim uteorim Kezohar arakia mazhirim Et nishmat Leib Nachman ben Mendel V'Doba Shelach leolamo Began Eidente menuchato Anabal harachamim Hasti reu beseter kenafecha leolamim Utzror bitzror hachayim et nishmato Adonai hu nachalato V'yanuach v'shalom Hamishkavo V'nomar Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Larry Loch, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that he find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. The Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabah, Be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabah mevorach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yit hadar, v'yit aleh, v'yit halal, shemei dekudsha, berichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who creates peace and harmony on high bring peace and harmony to us, to all Israel, and to all humanity. And again together, let us say, Amen. I want to thank again everyone for being here and for tuning in. I want to thank our pallbearers. I want to thank the family for giving me the honor of being here with all of you today. In a moment, as I mentioned before, we will conclude our ceremony with the familiar ritual of shoveling earth into the grave. The family will lead us. Everyone is invited to participate. A word on logistics, first of all, to please be careful. It's icy and slippery. To take your time, not to rush. You'll see that there are shovels on both sides of the pile, so that people can come from both sides, though it may be a little tricky. Take your time. There's also a small pail in front here, where I'm pointing, that if you don't want to use one of the big shovels but still want to participate, you can use. There's a small shovel and sand in there. There are different customs around the world in different Jewish cemeteries. Most people will pour 3 shovelfuls of earth. Some people use the front of the shovel, some people use the back, some people will pass the shovel to the next person, but some people, as if reluctant to pass on the shovel, will return it to the earth instead. Whatever you're familiar with is what you should embrace to give the ritual meaning for you. Most people would say that it is a painful act to shovel earth into the grave, but we remind ourselves in these moments that it is, but it is also a mitzvah. It's a righteous act we do without any hope of reward, selfless, to care for our loved one until the very end. Because we believe in Jewish tradition, our loved ones deserve to be buried by our own hands. Kind, knowing, sorrowful hands, hands that once held their hands. We're reminded that this act is one born of love and compassion for someone who meant a lot to many, many people. Earlier in the service we said, and we say it again in conclusion, the words of Job, the epitome of suffering in our tradition. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai mevorach. God, you have given, God, you have taken away, blessed be the name of God. May the memory of Larry Loch be for a blessing, as we mark that his essence will never leave our hearts and our souls. And to his family we offer the traditional words, Hamakom yinachem etchem betoch sha'arav elei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May you be comforted and consoled among all those who are in or who have ever been in mourning in our community. Thank you again to everyone, and I invite the family to come forward and to lead us.